Welcome back, everybody. Thank you for joining us. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to combine the next couple of daf together that talk about esrog and put it just into one share, just to make it easier, because, if you're on different dafim, it's easier for you to know exactly where you're holding. So this is probably going to be the last part in this series. It's an incredible series, incredible journey. I've enjoyed every moment of it. And we're going to talk about the esrog b'siyata d'shmaya. We start with the Mishnah on daf lamed daled omid base that goes to many of the halachas of the esrog as we know it. And it's important to know that not only are we getting clarity in the sugya of the daf that we're learning, but we're actually getting clarity in the halachas of picking daled minim, which will mean that it will make it much easier for you. When you're going to be picking a daled minim, it's going to be much easier knowing what is for sure possible, what is still kosher, what's to look out for, what's the easiest way to look for it, and so on and so forth. So thank you for joining us. And once again, if you want to join my daf share, a 20-minute share every day with some additions of halacha lamaisa and some stories sometimes as well. You could pick it up on Spotify or Google Music, Apple Music, whatever it is. You could download my app, Rabbi Avi Wiesenfeld app, or of course Torah Anytime, which is an incredible chesed to Klal Yisrael. Okay. I also want to thank the Agudas Yisrael commissions of Daf Yomi, who have tremendously helped me and got me to this stage of giving these wonderful video clips, and it's unbelievable. And b'siyata d'shmaya, we should be zoicha to know the halachas and keep the halachas. Okay, so let's begin with what the Gemara basically begins with, and then we'll move on from there. And that is like this: the Torah tells us pre-Eitz Hada, and we know from there that is considered to be the esrog. How do we know that? And the Gemara asks this question, right? The Gemara in the beginning of Lamed Hey Aleph tells us, Tana Rabbanon pre-Eitz Hada Eitz Shatam or Eitz Habir B'Shava. Have you is there esrog? Maybe it's pilpulin. Now, how do we know what it is? So the first thing the Gemara says is that the tree and the fruit basically taste the same. All we learn it's hadar mi'ilana b'shana l'shana, whatever it is. But that is where the limud that we know is vada and esrog and anything else. It's interesting because the Ritva says that, by the way, we have no suffix that Avram Avinu took an esrog. That's not a kasha. Moshe Rabbeinu took an esrog. I'll call upon him. What we want to do is find a makar in Shas or in the Torah that tells us that this is what it is, so we clearly know that we're doing the right thing. Now, here's actually a picture I took in the place that we're going to see many of the pictures that I'm going to be showing you. Okay, so one of the things you have to know, and we mentioned this before, but I want to mention again, there's two types of things over here. There's the Indian of Hadar and the Indian of Chosa. If anything is Chosa missing, then it's only possible on the first day of Yom Tov. The other days it's kosher, because the other days are Durabanan, only the first day is Deraisa, right? Hadar, as you said many times, is all of the days of Yom Tov. Moving on, Rabbi say. The first thing the Mishnah tells us, Sukkah lamed daled omid base. Esrog hayovish is posel. That is what it is. The Ravid, which the Torah brings down, Lamai says, the Tofrish Mem Ches Siv Aleph, says when the lecha, the moisture, finishes that normally comes out when it's pressed or cut, then it's got a din of yovish. Right? This esrog, for example, that you're seeing is an esrog that was done from last year, and therefore that is 100% absolutely yovish in that case. It's interesting if you want to use last year's esrog, for example, if you want to take the red as esrog and preserve it and use it for next year. So lemaisa, you have to know if it's preserved in the right place and it's still got moisture. There's no problem in having this year's, but most of the times it will actually be dry. This is actually a picture I took in the paradise that I saw this incredible esrog. Right? Half of it is yovish completely, and the other half is regular. Like, what do you say? Is that a esrog a yovish or not? Like, maybe look at the share of what's considered to be, still fresh, and if that's the amount of share, then that's good enough. Anyway, I don't know. I'm not sure, but it's an interesting question. What exactly would be the test of how do you test if the esrog is considered to be okay? And the answer is you take a thread and with a needle and the thread, and you basically see if the string gets some moisture, and that is the way to test it. Okay. Now, what is an interesting shaila, and I've seen this, and I actually was makabel this from a massive boki in Hilchos Daled Minim. He said to me one time he was holding his esrog, and a guy came over to him and said, "Excuse me, that your esrog is possible." I was like, "Excuse me, I'm the expert." He said, "Look at your pitim. The pitim is completely dry. Pitim is a chelik of the esrog. We'll get to it later. And therefore, if that is dry, so that's considered to be an esrog hayovish. Okay, so look out for that. Next thing is the Mishnah tells us the chosa culture is possible, which again the Rashi brings down. It's only on the first day because it's your mission. It's only midaraisa, and the reason that it is, says Rashi, says the Rosh, is because the Torah says ulekachtem ulekach tom. We learn the kichatama has to be complete, and this is not complete. The other reason is the Ravid and the Raviyah is a lotion of hida. That's what it is. Baito, they say. Now, this is quite common. Can happen through thorns and thistles that make it missing. You need a real bokeh to be able to see that it's actually missing, and not that it's a scab or something similar to that. But again, that's why you go to an expert, because they know exactly what is the right thing over here. And sometimes you can see. So, for example, what I did with this, I actually just put a knife into this. So it was missing absolutely nothing, but it looks like it's missing. So you really have to know if it's missing. Over here, the scabs are covered over. Again, the shaila. Now, let's move on. An indentation, the Magen discusses this. And sometimes you have an indentation, and it actually comes from an insect, which is obviously okay. Now, by the way, the Taz, Sikot and Hay, what if you have a suffix if it's chosa? It's a very nagay shaila, very nagay. I've looked at many esrogim that fit into this category. That if you have a suffix if it's chosa, you're not sure. The halacha is it's kosher even on the first day, unless it's on the chotem, and therefore, according to many, there is a mokum to be machme in that case. And normally we don't use magnifying glasses, as we'll discuss later. But over here, when I just want to be megala what the MS is, it's not sure it's showing me something that I don't know, then it's okay. Niklat is another thing that was taught to us by the Mishnah. And when I gave the Davsheh, Lamadal on the base, I said, like, who peels, look at this picture, who peels a shroigim? The answer is nobody does, but you'll be surprised that when you like sort of scratch off with your fingernail, which you should never do, to get up a blettel or a black dot or something similar to that, you've got to be very, very careful, because sometimes if you like smell the juice of the esrog, then that will mean that something might have been peeled off, and that's problematic. But before we discuss that, we have to know there are 3 layers of the esrog. There is the outer layer, that's a thin, glossy membrane. We have the middle layer that's like, we'll see like little dots, and inner layer, which is the fleshy thing inside. You can basically see it from here. These are the 3 layers. Again, this is all brought down in Tov Reish Mem Ches Sivov. Look at the Shadsian over there. And therefore, we have to know which layer is going to be the problem. The Mishnah Berurah paskins that the most outer layer is not a problem. That's not chosa. That's not called niklav. And only the middle, right? The middle layer, that's the problem. The Chazon Ish holds faket. The middle layer is more makel over here. The Chazon Ish more makel. The middle layer is not a problem. It's the third layer. It's the problem. And therefore, it's a machlokas over there. And the Maisa, most poskim are machmed like the shitas of Mishnah Berurah, and therefore it depends how much you would scratch off for it to be a problem or not. Now, this is going to be probably the most nageya, probably the most interesting shaila, and that's our Mishnah. Mishnah says, and the Gemara discusses it in the next daf, mitla pitmoso possible. If you take off the pitum, it is possible. Now, this is what we call the world war on pitums. Do you get a pitum? Do you not get a pitum? Is there a problem with an esrog without a pitum? All of those shaylas, right? So let's discuss it over here. Exactly what the din is and how we look at it over here. So look at this. First of all, where is the pitum? We grew up, the pitum is the thing on the top, but it's not so poshut. Rashi in the first parish brings down that it is, it seems to be like at the top, and the uketz is connected to the tree. Rashi, the second parish, brings they're both in the same place, the bottom, and there's a Ramban, there's a Ran. It's very interesting how there is different shitas in the Rishonim. Where is the pitum, right? But one thing we do have to know, you've got the pitum and you've got the shoshanta. The shoshanta is the crown, and the pitum is the stick, right? Just to make it simple in that way. Okay. Now, the general halacha is like this. The general halacha is that, let's go straight to the right. If the entire pitum is off, then it's for sure possible. There's no shadow whatsoever. If the pitum is like this, where the shoshanta is off, but there's still a stick available, then it's kosher. And, if you've got the whole stick, but here half the stick seems to have cut off, then it's kosher. If you can, there are more to get another one. So it's almost like the world has a mistake when they talk about the pitum. Oh, don't touch my esrog because maybe the pitum will fall off. Well, even if it does, by the way, it's not for sure that's going to be possible. It might be okay, right? Again, obviously, it's better to have one without, meaning with the full pitum, without this problem. But still, the idea just to remember, it's not a blanket rule that if you don't have a pitum, then it's considered to be okay. Now, what is the definition if you have a pitum that's half off? So the person can bring down that if you could hold it with like that, which this one obviously you can't, then it's considered to be those off. Now here's the shadow that I say. There's a rush, which the Torah brings down. Yesh et rogim, sheloi hoya lahem pitmois mei oilam. we go with every translation of the art scroll, that would mean that there are esrogim that never, ever, 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 ever had an esrog, pitim. And those ones are kosher. Those ones are kosher. Now, let's look at how an esrog is developed. Okay, I'm going to take you to the orchard that I went to near Netanya in order to take these pictures, and you will see how the esrog tree developed, and it's an incredible, incredible journey. Okay, so first of all, this is an esrog tree, by the way. It's quite low down. It's sort of bend down when you go underneath it. And it begins like this. This is the first stage of the bud that would be, and that's what you're looking at first. It then opens up. We don't see any esrog over here. So far, so good. And then, ooh, look at that. Look at that. That's interesting. Almost looks like a pitum coming out from the tree, right? There it is again. Let's continue the process. You can imagine how many months I had to stay on the paradise. Oh, there it is, getting a little bit bigger. Ooh, look at that. Something, I'm not saying what it is. Something seems to be falling off. Aha. Okay, there it is. There's one without, and one with that's falling off, ending up looking at the other ones. Okay, there it is again, and there they are, and they're obviously a little bit bigger. So again, you're telling me that the Rosh tells us that he had esrogim that never had a pitum. Well, it seems that they all do. So how are our esrogim without a pitum considered to be kosher? Right? That's the shaila. So the answer is, say many poskim, is that it really depends on what stage. Most of our esrogim, they fall off at such a small stage that it's not really considered to be an esrog at that time. Sorry, I'll go back a second. It's not even an esrog, right? This picture there at the bottom, right? It's an esrog? No, it's like a piece of something. So therefore, at the stage that it becomes an esrog, which it was much, much bigger, it never had a pitum in that case, right? It never had a pitum in that case. Now, I will tell you that all of this being said, Lemaisa, many gedolei poskim hold that you should be machmir and you should have a pitum. I know my Rosh Hashiva of Scheinberg Zatzal Poskin that way. I know my Bransdorfer Zatzal Poskin that way. Many Rabbi Sha'olim Poskin that way. And the truth of the matter is, the shimish that I did in Ramot Friedlander and others have started Minim, it was often, where's the pitum? Like, where's the esrog? Without a pitum, where's the esrog? Now, Chas v'shalom, we can't say it's not good. Avada and avada, if without a pitum it fell off early enough, it's okay. And by the way, the simon to know that it fell off early enough is if there's an indentation. Right, again, you need a bucky for this, but there's a rim going around, so like the esrog continued to grow while the pitum was gone. It's sort of a similar to see. So again, let's make it simple. 100%. If it fell off early enough, it's 100% kosher. But there are many positives say it's better to get with the pitum, and then you're 100% okay. And the reason why many of them stay on is because they actually spray them in that case. Okay. Now, this, by the way, on the right is a picture of a pitum that snapped off when it was much bigger. And therefore, in the factory, or maybe the guy before you when he handled it, so you got to be very, very careful. Whereas the one on the left has an indentation, which shows that it grew even afterwards. Again, you might need a bocky to look at it. That's a double poshet, but it is what it is. It is what it is. And the Chazon Ish held it was kosher and ganzen. This is how they grow. Many Gedolei poskim also hold that way. So there's no problem whatsoever of getting one without a pitum. I always tell my bochum, my bochum yeshiva knows. Shivas based of it, everyone knows. You get an esrog with the pitum. That's what it is. Get an esrog with the pitum. Hey, come on, are we babies that it's going to fall off? Seriously, come on. Get it with the pitum. It's the crown of the esrog. It's beautiful. But avada, if it fell off early enough, it's also kosher. Moving off, there are certain types of pitums. Into the Kappa Chaim brings this down already. Tofish mem chesed cotton mem vov. Two types of pitum. One is what he call an eights one, where it's like a stick. That's on the left, and on the right, pitum basari he calls it, which is the flesh of the actual esrog itself. Again, nafkamina, you can see we sliced it open. See, it's not like a stick, it's a chelik of the esrog itself, right? We don't really find the Meiser 8th type of pitum so much. Okay, now moving on the ukuts. Now, the ukuts is how the esrog was connected to the tree. There are two types. There's one that's immersed in and one that's sticking out. The Magid Mishnah says mafurish that the ukuts is not a chelik of the esrog, and as I passed in the Rosh and the Oizerua. So that means if the entire ukuts is missing, and if you could find out that absolutely nothing of the esrog came with it, then it's 100% kosher, even though there's no ukuts. Comes along the riff and says that the whole ukuts is missing, it's like chasa, and it's possum, and as I pass in the Rosh. Okay, there's a Mordecai Griz Alevi in stencil lamed base that goes to the sukkah that obviously not at this moment I'm going to do it. But the Ma'aseh Halacha and Ma'aseh Shulchan Aruch and Sif Ches or Shulchan also, if the entire ukuts is missing and there's only a hole in its chasa and it's possible, eat only on the first day. That's what it is. Okay, so that's that's what it is. If it's a little bit missing, it's okay. If it's fully missing, problematic. Two different types of ukas, as we mentioned, the one that's immersed in, and there's one that's sticking out. There are some sofa brings that the one on the left is better because it's a more simon kosher, so the esrog, but I can put them both 100% kosher. The Tiferes Yisrael on the Mishnayos brings a chumrah. That is that the ukas, which is at the bottom, and the pitim that's at the top, should be opposite each other. Whereas over here you have the ukats on there and the pitim over there, it's 100% kosher. It's a hiddah. That's all. It's a hiddah. Moving on, Rabbi say. Oh, look at this one. Ukats comes like from the side, not even from the bottom. Anyway, now there are many shini maris, different colors that we're going to discuss. The two things we have to know is number one, the color. Number two, where. Now, let's discuss like this. Chazosis. Chazosis, by the way, is not what we think it is. And Chazosis, the Mishnah, Sukkah Lamadalat, tells us also Chazosis are ruboy, whatever. So the Gemara explains one or two places. We'll get there. Rashi says it's like scabs. The Rosh paskins that they have substance inside them, and you can feel them. It's not just like this. This, what I'm showing you by the picture, really is not really a Chazosis. It's just a bump. And the bump is fine. It's very rare, by the way. The Aruch HaShulchan brings down Lamed Vav. It's very rare to find an Ares Roigim, like a pus pimple almost, on the esrog. Okay, here's another example of two that I found in the paradise. Here's one that almost goes along the whole thing. Incredible. Anyway, colors are very, very important for us to remember in this case. Right there, as you can see, there are different colors, right? And these colors are often found on the esrogim. Black is for sure possible. White is possible. Brown is okay. Red, tzorach lahachme. Now you also have to know what is considered to be white. First, Yisrael says it means mamish, real jet white. Chaim Bracha brings a marisham and says even if it's noted to white, already should be machmer on the first day. V'lashem lemaisa paskin the Chazanish also that if it was off white, then it is not possible. Beige for sure is good, for example. Yeah. Now, and black you have to be very careful because often these things are found on a stroke. You have to be very careful. I would not suggest using your nail. What I suggest is taking some thumbtack and sort of trying to prod it out, or take an earbud and wet it and put it in. But don't use your fingernail. You have to pay for that esrog if you ruin it. Yeah, that's what it is. Okay, moving on. Rabbi say, sometimes menuma, right? The Gemara mentions it's menuma. Menuma is just like a leopard. It's spotty, therefore it's possible in that case. Now, here's one of the most important shilas. Where is it? Roiv or on the chayta? That's our shaila, right? Roiv means that whichever direction I turn it, I'm always going to see it. Roiv doesn't mean the majority of the esrog itself, but it means that any direction that I turn it, that is, I'm going to find it. Which is a machlokes the Mishnah and the Chazanish. Are we going Roiv shetach or not? Chazanish holds I have to go by Roiv. If I slice the esrog in half and I put a string around it, would it be Roiv majority of the esrog space itself? Mishnah holds no. Now the Gemara tells us that al chaytma afilu b'mashu is possible. The reason that is because the chaytim is more machme. Where is the chaytim? So here we have a machlokes we're showing him, as you can see. What we've generally paskin is that from number one all the way up, in other words, from when it starts sloping up towards the pitum, that is considered to be the chaytim. That is the most machme chelik of the esrog, and the reason for that is because the Rishonim tell us that is the place that you can see more than anywhere else. Okay, so anywhere where it starts to slope up is considered. So therefore, for example, this one will be here, which is very makel because it means the whole esrog over here is more, and it got a chance to be okay. And this one is a bit higher up over there as well. Here's one, for example. Look at this one, all the way down here, goes all the way up. Here's an interesting shaila. What happens if it starts sloping on one end over there and one end over there? So it's coming actually from two different areas. Isn't that interesting? Isn't that very, very, very interesting? In that case, so Shevet HaLevi has a tshuva in Chenek Chesed Kufnun that he says that the where, in other words, the opposite side started the slope is not considered to be the chaytim. V'yashav is machna, says it's chaytim even from the lowest part over there. Here's an interesting one. If you have one like this that looks like two chaytims, so it starts slanting in there, and then it goes back again, then it goes start slanting again. What do you say in that case over there? So there's a pashtus in the Be'alocha is that you go from the highest one. That's what it seems to be. Be'alocha sif test, by the way. Okay, moving on, Rabbi Sai. Yeah. Okay. Look at that is a beauty, by the way. That is the most incredible gartel I've ever seen. But you can't say that the chaytim begins over here. It begins at the top where it starts to slope for the last time before the pitum. And that means that on that place where the chaytim is, you've got to be extremely careful to make sure that there's nothing there. And that is the first place you look when you take up the esrog, because you look at the chaytim. You don't have to look at the ukot so much. How visible does it have to be? So there's a famous tshuva in the Mabit that says Rakim Hunera L'Roiv Odom. That means you're looking at the normal distance that you would hold an esrog. In fact, they bring from Gedolim, like Moshe, for example, that huge lines outside his door. He would look at it very quickly. He just hold it in a regular, distance away from his eyes, turn it around. Yeah, good. There's a Modik Maisa. Somebody came to a Moshe. What's it called? Somebody sent their child to a Moshe in order to check their esrog. So they gave the child the esrog and the box. And be careful. Take it to a Moshe. So he waits in line about an hour and a half. He waits in line. But the Moshe, when he gets there, he sees it goes very quickly. Moshe takes it. He looks at it. 1, 2, 3. Good. 1, 2, 3. Puzzle. 1, 2, 3. Kosher. Very quick. He looked at it, mamish, like from a distance. It wasn't even like scrutinizing and everything. So when he came to his turn, and Moshe looked at it, kosher. Next. Okay, so he went back over, said, Moshe passing, that's kosher. But 1 minute, did he say it's Mahuda? I don't know. Ask him if it's kosher. Go back. Ask him if it's Mahuda. Oh, okay, fine. So he went back. So he goes back in the line, waits for Moshe. And again, Moshe's seen so far, since he left, probably another 100, 200, 400, who knows? He looked at the esrog. He's going through, kosher, apostle, kosher, gets this guy. Seen this one, kosher, apostle. Unbelievable. He was able to know. Is it mamish unbelievable? That's what we do. So that's what we hold it in regular. Now you'll tell me, I saw many people that use magnifying glasses. The answer why they use magnifying glasses is because there's something there and they're not sure what it is. They want to be 100% sure that it's okay. Okay, that's what we're holding. Now let's move on. Rabbi say they didn't talk about and the Al and therefore that's why we don't have to use a magnifying glass unless you want to be megala. A blettel is Yiddish for a leaf mark. There is no problem with a blettel whatsoever, unless it is raised. That's what Ramah brings after the Shulchan Aruch just told us if you gimel that chazazis are higher, but if it's kosher, in this case, if it's not higher over here, and the mabit in Simon Mem Test tells us they come from the thorns or leaves, whatever it is, and it changes into the color in that case, right? It comes from either a leaf or from scratch. Raised is okay, not raised is for sure okay without any problem whatsoever. That is the reason why the people in the Pradesh spend so much time and money to make sure that every esrog is accounted for and every esrog is not going to come to be bruised or damaged in any way. But a blettel is found everywhere and it's 100% kosher. It may take away from the overall hiddah, but generally it's 100% kosher, even if it's found on the pitum itself. Says the Succah. If you have an esrog like this that gets in the middle of Yontav all brown and used and soggy and this is beautiful. Why? And it's some soif over here. He says, this, I was using it for the mitzvah, and therefore it's absolutely gavaldik. Absolutely gavaldik. Well, by the way, the Rav Chaim Kanievsky brings a pshat in some soifa, and he says that this doesn't mean that this esrog is more muhuda than a clean one. It just means that it's okay. That's what it is. Rabbi Avi Kamenetsky said it's a shvach to the bala esrog. It means he's been using it well. Okay. Esrog ogul kakado is possible. That means if it's around like a ball, it's 100% possible. I showed these pictures of Israel. The left one he did not like. The right one he said Labaisa has a chotem, and therefore it is okay. And if you put it in a mold, we'll see a bit later in the Gemara about that. Yorik Ikarti, Machoikas now Mishnah, Reb Meir holds it's okay, Reb Yehuda not, and the Shulchan Aruch Tovish from Chesi Chavalef. It's mamish jet green, mamish a dark green. It's very rare to find in that most of our sroikim are kosher. The reason why, by the way, Eretz Yisrael has green ones and the Chutzah says yellow ones is a number of few reasons. First of all, people in the Chutzah like to get a yellow one because it's balabatish. All the picture books have an esrog that's yellow. Why should I get a green one? And the other reason is because they cut it much earlier because they have to put it in the boat and ship it over. Therefore, by the time the Americans get it, it's 100% ripe. If you take our sroikim and wait another couple of weeks, you'll see they will also get green. And therefore, there's no problem with that. Now, it's interesting because the Shulchan Aruch says if it's going to turn yellow, it's kosher even if it's green. The Mishnah Berurah just says it's better to get one that's slightly turning yellow in that case. We also have to know as well that there is a Bach, and the Bach tells us that it's kedai for a person to have a yellow one in that case. There's a Zoya, a Zoya from Esther Hamalka with a green face, whatever it is. It's also an Indian. We should try to get a yellow one. The way to turn it yellow is to take a red apple, take off the stem that releases the juices, and put it in a container like this, a plastic container, not touching the esrog and not near the ukkot. If it's near the ukkot might fall off. After around 24 to 48 hours, you should have an esrog that's yellow, and that can, it's a shal if it can be done on Shabbos. Different sizes in what they are going to be, and that is that over there. And the Hido mitzvah you saw is when you have holding, you need two. I want to mention to you, very, very important, you have to know that your esrog is 100% kosher, and it's not a murkav. Murkav means it was sort of, tied up with something else, and therefore the Mishnah Berurah brings 3/8 from the Sam Seifa, which are not foolproof, but they're pretty good. Number one, if it's smooth, if the stem sticks out, and it's a thin peel, those three would mean that it's a murkav, and you've got to be very, very careful over there. The difference between lemon and esrog, you can see clearly from the picture on the left. Esrog has got almost no fruit. The lemon's got a little bit, and the tamany's got absolutely nothing. As you can see when you open up the esrog. Now, there are many different types. There's a Chazanish esrog, there's the Moroccan, there's a tamany, a Yamava. These things are so that these things are not murkav, and therefore the 100% kosher any suffix whatsoever, and you have to know the difference between them. All right, Rabbi Say, the time is late. I want to move on, but I want to mention that you can join my Parsha Share weekly video. Just send an office at basedavid.com, office at basedavid.com. My Shmitter in the Kitchen book is about to be released. It should be in all the stores in the United States and Eretz Yisrael. Buy it. It helps you even in Chutz La'aretz, even if you're not going to be keeping Shmitter in Eretz Yisrael, but you keep it in Chutz La'aretz. Very, very interesting for a few dollars. You can learn the halachot, and obviously on the right, you've got my kashrus in the kitchen, which is obviously incredible, and we've got the Sephardi version as well. I want to thank so much my wonderful friends, Mike Stein. We have to meet each other. You come to Eretz Yisrael, please. He sponsored this all the way from Memphis, Tennessee. The Daf Yomi, Shmir Salash and Shurim he seems to like. And I have a course to him for helping out with the series. It's been an incredible journey. I've enjoyed every moment of it. I hope all of you have also enjoyed every moment of it. It's really a beautiful thing that we've gone through the halachos of Dalet Minim together with the Daf. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. Thank you for Agudas Yisrael helping me out, giving me this idea. Thank you to Yeshiva's Beis David for hosting. You can look us up online. basedavid.com, BEIS David.com. You can look us up. It's wonderful. If you want to send an email to say thank you, or to sponsor a share, or to join us, please, office at basedavid, BEIS David.com. Have a wonderful night. Have a wonderful day at Slideshow in the Daf. Thank you for joining. Join the Daf share. Join my share, Spotify. It's amazing. Have a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful day.